Good afternoon. Thank you very much to Idees for inviting us to speak here. The ones of you who don't know SI Capital, we are an investment boutique focused exclusively on environmental markets based here in Barcelona. And among other things, we manage an investment fund which invests in renewable energy infrastructure. What I wanted to talk about a little bit is and maybe take a step back from what we've heard earlier is when we talk about clean tech or in environmental markets in general, differentiate a little bit in what we talk about when we talk about infrastructure and what is clean tech in a sort of in a stricter sense of the word. When we talk about infrastructure, and I think the presentation of Marcus earlier was of Hans earlier was point that out a little bit. When we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about assets which, particularly in the renewable energy area, but also in water or in waste, which have an important initial investment, which generate recurrent cash flows along the life of those assets, which normally are very long-term life. So we're talking 20, 25, 30, 35 years, or even longer if we talk hydroelectrical plants, for example. And their business model is very much defined by regulation, so that the business model is regulatory driven, and that means that generally speaking, you know where your price is going to be over that time period, and you also know what your demand is going to be, or you have all your production, so to speak, sold. And this enables you, with an initial investment, to make very, very clear cash flow forecasts, therefore allows very heavy leverage. Even in the current environment, we're talking about banks financing these kind of projects between 75 and 85%. A year and a half ago, they talked about 95 to 97%, but most of these projects still be financed about 80% by banks. And from an investor's point of view, the business model or the return model is a dividend-driven model. So an investor looks at these kind of projects because of their capacity to generate cash flows and take out dividends, which doesn't mean that they can't be sold as well. But the key driver, really the value driver, is dividends. When we talk clean tech from a sort of more sort of technical perspective, it's really something quite different. And I think actually clean tech is maybe a little bit of an arbitrary, unfortunate definition, because clean tech includes energy, includes water, includes waste. We've heard about this, materials, efficiency, IT, agriculture, and a lot of other things. So it's a lot of other subsectors which come together in a way in clean tech, but they obviously remain parts of their own sectors. So I think that's one important thing to bear in mind. The other thing compared to infrastructure is, of course, that these companies which are active in the clean tech sector are companies which generate technology or products or services where they have to compete in an open, unregulated market to sell them. So they are not regulatory driven. They do not know what their cash flows are going to be. They obviously have a much higher potential to growth, which infrastructure doesn't, and therefore are more, if you will, more exposed to the general business environment, and therefore have a lot more risk. They are very often technology driven, and I think a key question which Juan talked about earlier, when we talk about clean tech, much more than in infrastructure, team and people factors obviously the key driver of success in a business. Whereas in an infrastructure asset, the team is a relatively irrelevant part of the project. In a clean tech company, that's obviously one of the key drivers. And the other big, from an investor's point of view, an investment in a clean tech company would be very much exit driven. So meaning, how much is this company going to be worth compared to how much was it worth when I invested into the company? And this will be driven by market factors as well as by obviously the ability to generate revenues and generate profit. And that was a bit the overview I want to give over those two concepts between infrastructure and clean tech.